Welcome to this episode of Chatting with Staxx. I'm your host, Bill Staxx, and today we got Larry Mazza. How you doing, Larry?
Doing good. Doing good. This is becoming a regular event for us.
Yeah, definitely. People enjoy you coming on and telling your stories.
Well, if they do, I'm happy to hear that.
So one of the questions I have for you is, when did you first find out about Carmine Persico? Did you know about him before you met Greg? And when did you first hear about him, that he's the boss and all
Well,
this type of stuff?
when I first met Greg, to me, he was the boss. I didn't understand there was a structure, and all the guys in the crew at the Wimpy Boys treated Greg like he was the boss. Now, Greg was a boss's man for a long time, which means he goes direct to the boss. He never took a captain's position. He was actually more powerful than that by being able to go direct to the boss. He didn't have to go through the channels. So he had that all the way back from I maybe Profaci, but definitely Joe Colombo. So he was a boss's man. So he always had a very, very high status in the family, even though he didn't carry the title. So he had his own little family within the family, and to us, he was the boss. When I started learning from Greg about the structure and protocol and things like that, I learned about Junior Persico, and I understood he went back a long time, fought through wars like we did. He used to make a joke. He didn't get that nickname for nothing. Carmine the Snake. He knew how to, I guess, wither his way through problems and, work his way out of trouble, whatever it took. But he had control of the family for a real long time, so you got to give him credit for that. But he was more of a figment, not a figment. We knew he was there. He was more of almost a figurehead to us because none of us were going to meet him. I got to bring Greg to the club once, and it's just a short stint. He was out of prison, maybe 18 months. And in that time, I had to bring Greg to 11th Avenue where his club was. He was already outside, just hanging out in front of the club. I walked Greg over, a quick introduction, and I walked away. This is my nephew Larry. Say hello to Carmine. He might have said Junior. It's been a long time. I don't remember. And I walked off, and that was really it. That's the closest I ever came to him again. But he was in and out of prison, for in prison most of the time. So it wasn't that, I probably would have been around him again. But so that was really it. We knew he was the main boss of the family.
He had
Position
a
at the
son,
top.
right? He had sons that were
Oh
out there
yes,
in the
yeah,
light.
yeah. He had several sons. Obviously the most important to the family to my life story was Allie Boy, his son, who was, expected to be the boss of the family someday. But he was in and out of prison a lot too. And obviously when Junior put somebody in charge, it caused all our problems. But there was Allie Boy. He had another son, Michael, who is, pretty much legit. But having that name, it's hard to get through life being, really being legit because he's still going to be around people and they know he's a Persico. So he's had some headaches that maybe he didn't deserve. But then again, maybe he started liking it too when he was the last of the Persicos out there.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then he had his brother, Carmine had a brother, Allie, who also had kids. And one of them was named Carmine. There was a Larry, and then there was the other brother, Teddy, who had a son, Teddy. So there were a bunch of Persicos out there, and most of them were part of the life somewhere.
So were you ever close with Jerry Lang?
No, again, he was older than me. He was the underboss. I was around his son a lot, in different nightclubs, and
Pork
he
chop.
used to,
They used to
yeah,
call him
yeah,
pork chop, right?
yeah, Vinny Lang, yeah.
Yeah.
But again, there was no place for me at my age. You got to realize this is a long ways back. There he is, a long ways back, where I was a kid coming into the life. It's funny now. I'm the age they were, even older. When they were prominent, and I was a kid coming in. It's funny. I just had that conversation with somebody today. They were asking me who's going to play who when my series finally comes out. And I say it constantly changes because as time goes by, certain people are getting too old. Who's De Niro going to play today?
Yeah,
He's too old to play any of us at the time, but he could play Junior Persico, in the final days in prison and stuff like that. But anyway, it's another story. So I said, they asked me who I'm going to play. I'm going to say, well, all these years later, this all happened when I was 30, 28, 27. 30, I was in prison. So from 18 to 30, who's going to, but I says, now I could play
you could play
Victor. I could probably play Greg, but they're going to put a star in that position. I could probably play Vicarini. I could play, my father, who's going to be in and out. The question, the fella you got, Jerry Lang, who was the underboss, in that picture, he's probably maybe 50, right? 50, 52, maybe. I don't know. I don't even know. Maybe a little more, maybe 55.
Probably.
I don't even think he was that old in that picture. But anyway, yeah, I was like that kid on his shoulders age. I was a kid. I was 20, 21. So there's no reason and no way I'm going to be around the underboss. But I'll hear stories through Greg. I know Greg would have to go meet him at times, or Greg Jr. later on. But when my time came, and I was, in a position to sit, I sat with Joe T, the acting boss. I was at the table with him constantly. Greg, of course. I was with Carmine Sessa, the consigliere. I was with Richie Fusco, the acting consigliere later on. I was with several captains at the table, almost like an equal, especially during the war. But my time came. It's all about time. I get a lot of these guys, they run around, I was a captain, I was this, I was that. Yeah, you had your moment in the sun. Doesn't make you any better than the last guy that was a captain or whatever. You have your moment in time in that life. And these guys were way ahead of me, so my time wasn't really there to be sitting at a level like that.
Yeah, like if you had the chance to be in the life from when you left until now, you probably would have had a lot of experience like a lot of these other people did if this was a lot longer back in the day.
Yeah, I mean, if the war would have ended with us winning, with what we did, and it's history. I mean, everybody knows what Greg did and had me and Jimmy, basically, the rest of his crew too, but nothing like me and Jimmy. We were everything, everybody knows that. So it's just, who's to say where we'd be now? Skippers, at least. They would have to give us a position, for what we did to save the family. It would have been the Arena family if it wasn't for us. Some people say I would have made a good consigliere because I was well liked, maybe a little smarter than the average bear. And I take that as an honor to this day if somebody feels that way. But I hear it from time to time from active guys that left, that flipped, because you still run into them. It's a small world, and there was a whole bunch of us out there. So it's almost impossible not to meet people.
Have you ever ran into somebody and you're like, oh, like it put you at a pause? Like,
no, I haven't. I ran into people that you would think that would happen, but that's not me. It's not going to, I still feel most people in that life saw what happened and know what happened. Okay. And that guy behind you in the white shirt was my boss, and also the biggest informant in history, 30 years. So again, am I going to be the last guy standing and just take a life sentence? And the guy next to him, Carmine Sessa, the biggest piece of shit on earth that started this whole war because he didn't have the balls to shoot Vicarino when he had the chance, came running back to Greg for help, riled this whole situation up, and then he became the first rat on the case. Went right in, made a deal, ratted everybody out, who was doing what, everything he heard. And Greg was giving him information the whole war, so I knew we were in trouble. giving them details of the hits and things like that. So no, I mean, I've run into them. I ran into one. I always talk about it in prison when I was in general population, and you know, I didn't go out like a hero, but I never felt I betrayed the world either. I did what I had to do at the time because of the cards that were in my hand. A prominent player in the Genovese family loved me, hated what happened, and I hung out with him for 2 years. And he's very prominent. Trust me when I tell you. So I ran into other people. Some invited me on their boats and their yachts, and you know, we sat down and talked about what went on, how horrible it was, and everything. Even guys that were almost victims of the treachery. So no, I've never did it. And I normally, when we do, but I will say this: it's never been on 13th Avenue where I would rub it in their face or anything like that. But it's been the outskirts, other cities, other states, and I know a lot of friends that ran into people and feel the same way. Most people just going to mind their business now. It's a changed world.